Rita Clausen, and I'm here with Carolyn Gingrich, and we are currently consultants working in learning support services, the teaching and learning branch of it. And we support secondary literacy, numeracy, in Carolyn's case, primarily numeracy. So I don't know that we will address all of your hopes and dreams for this topic. But we are here to share maybe some context and maybe some things that you could try at home with your children. So one thing that we wanted to highlight is part of the new grade 9 curriculum. So did you know that the father of algebra is, or the person who is called the father of algebra is a man named Muhammad al-Khwarizmi, who was living in 850 BC. And there are documents where he works on linear and quadratic relations. And anyway, so his history is part of math. Did you also know that Pascal's triangle, which is pictured in the middle here, was actually thought about and conceived of 600 years prior by a Chinese mathematician named Jiaxian? And did you know that in Incan history, or culture, they used ropes to keep track of records, finances, taxes, that kind of thing. And where a knot was on a rope indicated a value, including decimal values. So it was a very sophisticated way of thinking about number and visualizing it. So there's two reasons to kind of start with this. One, like math history and acknowledging like different cultures' contributions to math is part of the grade 9 curriculum, but it's also part of where students are coming from. We know that they bring rich backgrounds with them. And one thing that we might want to do at home is acknowledge a history that is part of a culture, others and our own. But then we move from that rich history to how math is presented in media, or in this case, memes. And there's a lot of stigma associated with math and how we view it and how we view math ability. So here are some funny images we thought we could include. Math is associated with being really smart. And then by association, if you are not good at math, you are thought to be not smart. That should not be the case. And in what world situation do you need to use 34 watermelons? Like a giant picnic? I don't know. So we're going to invite you to put in the chat, if you feel comfortable, just name things that you notice in this picture. And if people are on their phones, that might make the chat tricky. Groups working together to solve problems. I'm curious if anyone knows where the teacher is. So this is one of our high school classrooms, and this is a grade 9 class current. And you may notice, okay, so we have desks in the room in groups, and no one is at them, wondering whom to ask for help. The teacher is very hands-on. Yeah, so the teacher actually is like right here, working with a group of students. And the rest, yes, are definitely working around the room in groups. So depending on what school you're at, what teacher your child has for math, this may or may not be their experience of math right now. And there's a lot of research that has gone into teaching in this way, not just necessarily math, but when we engage students in math problems in a more collaborative setting, they have opportunities to think mathematically and then extract the math concepts or procedures that we want to highlight once they've thought about those problems. What we know is that each student comes into a classroom with a lot of background knowledge, prior math experiences, creative ideas, questions, and how do we create an environment where students can have opportunities to tap into those, where we can get to know who students are and their authentic selves, where we can give as needed support so that they can move in their math learning. And so one way to do this would be for students to engage collaboratively to get to know each other, but also to get to know the math and be challenged with teacher support as needed. So the Ministry of Ontario has put together a list of high impact instructional practices. And so we just wanted to highlight some more aspects of what your child might be experiencing in math class. They might be learning through the problem solving tasks and experiences that you would have seen and this picture shows. They might be experiencing or getting experiences with tactile tools and different representations to make sense of the math concepts that they're working with, even really complex concepts like factoring quadratics and simplifying algebraic expressions. They might be having a lot of math conversations with each other or with the teacher, facilitated by the teacher or in small groups. And we know that when people talk about what they're learning, it helps them learn it more. So the more opportunities kids can have to talk about the math is helpful. They will be experiencing deliberate practice, so purposeful practice. Maybe they have choice in the kind of difficulty level they want to start with. And then they might be experiencing different kinds of groupings, whether they're in collaborative groups at tackling problems or one-on-one with a teacher or small groups with a teacher. So the environment may feel different from what you experienced in your own math story. We also know that when learning math, it's really, really important that what we're learning is we have opportunities to make connections between how those concepts or procedures are represented. So not just symbolically with equations and computation, but also visually with graphs and with images and contexts. So this image on the left is directly taken from the grade 9 math course where we have 4 different representations of the same relationship. That's just to illustrate that by making those connections between representations, we can decide which representation might help us solve a problem. So giving kids opportunities to select strategies and make connections is really, really important as they're learning and as they're demonstrating what they're learning. So whereas social media or media and school math as it's depicted might prioritize memorizing steps and time tests and competition and accurate calculation, we know that math that's necessary for the world requires thinking and problem solving and collaboration and creativity. So what are the ways that our classrooms can also provide students opportunities to develop those skills?
All right, this is where I come in. So Alita's given us a little picture about what math classrooms might look like for some of your children. And of course, some of them may experience a more traditional classroom that you might be used to as well. Then there's the what happens when your child comes home, and how do you engage in conversations with them about what they're learning in math. And of course, we found lots of memes about the frustrations and struggles that you might experience when you're trying to help your child with their math at home. I'm also a parent, as well as a high school math teacher. I'm a parent of 3 teenagers. And so I understand that how talking about math, schoolwork in general, or helping kids with their schoolwork is either impossible because you don't have time to fit it into your busy schedules. And it can, on the other hand, be highly stressful and create conflict that you don't want to add to in your home. Or you could be feeling just anxious yourself, and not able to support your child with what they need. So we'll talk about some strategies that maybe you can bring in to help your child along their math journey that might help mitigate some of those issues. So the first thing to talk about is this picture here, which we could call the curve of forgetting. And this was a concept that was coined by psychologist Herman Ebbinghaus back in like the 1880s. He was already talking about this, that when we first learn a new concept, if we don't have repetition and recall of that concept and we use it and we bring it to mind, then we very quickly forget all about that. And learning happens in this cycle of encoding new information and retrieving previous learning information and putting them together. And the more times that we can practice retrieval, bringing something to mind, the more it gets encoded into our long-term memory and becomes another source of information that we can use to learn new things again. So, in thinking about this, I was thinking that if you can just ask your child to call to mind in the evening what they learned in math class that day, even if you're not sitting down beside them and looking at what they did, you can do this while you're driving to activities or you're making dinner. Just asking them to bring to mind and tell you about something they learned in math class helps with that retrieval and that encoding of new information. But as if you have the same experience as I have at home, if I ask, what did you learn in school today? I don't really get a whole lot of information out of my kids. So maybe there are some other ways that you can ask some of those questions. So here's a couple of suggestions. I'll read them out just in case that you can't look totally at your screen, but if you have a chance to put in the chat, choose one of these questions you think maybe you could try with your kids. So, and you can just say A, B, C, D, or E. So A, what is something you learned in math class today that surprised you? B, what is something you wish your teacher knew more about your learning in math? C, what's something you thought about in a different way than your teacher or a classmate today? D, who did you help today? Who helped you today? That might give you a chance to ask for more information. E, what was a moment in math class when you felt really confident or where you felt really not confident today? And then you can dig in for more information. Maybe you have another question that works for you to get some information out of your kid, or another idea that you can pop in the chat. Rita's picking D as her favorite. Tiffany says C. for her son. He likes to think outside the box. I like that one too. It gives your kid permission to think about things in their own unique way. Got someone else that's shared A. Yeah, something that surprised you today. All right. Some other things as we think about talking about math with our teens, coming back to that point about it can sometimes be stress or anxiety producing. There is research out there that math trauma and math anxiety is a real thing. And brain research shows us that students pick up on messages from their parents. And actually, the important thing with parents helping their students is not so much the parents' math knowledge. That doesn't have as much impact as the parents' level of math anxiety. And so sometimes we say things to kids intending to ease their anxiety that actually turned out to be harmful messages that are not helpful. So for instance, we might say, oh, that's okay that you're struggling with this. You're just not a math person, or I was never good at math either. Instead of those kinds of messages, by saying those things, we're giving the impression that it's fixed. There's nothing that you can do to change it if you're not a math person. Instead, we can say, you can do this. I believe in you. Math is an open, beautiful subject that's all about effort and hard work. We want to make sure that it's clear to our kids that math is not just about natural talent. Math is about effort. Being good at math doesn't mean that it's not hard. We can be good at math, even when it's hard. I don't know, maybe sometimes, especially when it's hard, because then we're really engaging in problem solving. Saying things like, we can talk about person-centered praise versus process-centered praise. So even saying something that focuses on a child's natural talents, like, oh, you're so smart, while that might seem like praise to our kids, it kind of sets up an environment where they may not feel comfortable taking risks in case they can't live up to always being smart. So if they place a lot of their identity in being smart, then taking risks or trying something new might seem like a threat to that. So instead, we can emphasize the things that learners can control. So we can encourage risk-taking and productive behaviors by putting our praise into the effort that you put into math practice really shows. Congratulations, I'm proud of you. Or talking about like, oh, you're doing such a great job at getting at working on your homework every night, or things like that. So we're putting emphasis on the things that they're doing, the effort that they're putting in, as opposed to making it just innate to it has to be based on natural talent. Did you have
I
something to
would,
add, Alita?
yeah, I was like, some more things to name in addition to effort might be naming the strategies that you notice a child doing to solve a problem. Like, oh, I liked that you drew a picture of what this means. That must be really helpful for thinking through this problem. Or I noticed that you were paying attention to the pattern. If we name those kind of like mathematical behaviors, we might reinforce their importance too.
Mhm. There are just other ways, especially if you have a child that might be experiencing some math anxiety. We have a meme here that, kind of highlights that stress level of trying to help a child with math. Some ways that we can ease a little bit of that anxiety is give lots of time for thinking. Math does not have to be fast. We can give lots of wait time. sometimes it's hard as parents to just be patient and wait. And that's the benefit of, you know, while you're driving in the car, embrace the silence and just wait, give time for thinking. Celebrate different ways of thinking about a problem. Get curious, try to figure out how your child is thinking about doing some mental math or things like that. Make it an opportunity for curiosity. As Alita suggested, ask them to draw a picture or explain what they're thinking, making those different types of connections between representing things in a visual way and thinking about it mentally and writing it down in numbers or symbols. You can always say, tell me more about that, to probe for more information. Trying not to jump to, oh no, that's wrong, do it this way, or highlighting where they might have made a mistake, but maybe just asking, hey, tell me more about that. So you're giving them that time. And speed is not the goal. Thinking deeply about math is the goal. And the more we talk about math and numbers, the more we build that kind of fluency, and it becomes part of our vocabulary. So a few things that you can do just in everyday life. Make estimates about all kinds of things. How long do you think that is? How far away do you think that car is or that truck is? How long do you think it's going to take us to get there when you're driving? Notice number and patterns in the world around you. Make note of things. We've got a picture here of a lamppost. Why is the shadow shorter than the so short? Encourage question posing and curiosity just about anything. Ask questions about everything. That's part of what math is looking for patterns and asking questions about the world. Talk about the understandings of number and patterns from your home culture or language to help build on that rich history that Alita was talking about earlier. Do things that involve mental math together. So when you're baking, highlight different ways that you can do the measurements, doubling a recipe, going shopping, try to estimate or predict what the final bill is going to be. If you feel comfortable, share with your child things about your home finances. Let them see the bills. How is your gas bill calculated? What does it mean to amortize a mortgage? See if there's ways that you can involve your child in some of those conversations so they can see math in the real world and be curious about how those things work. You can play games with cards or dice that involve doing some mental math calculations that just kind of builds that skill. You play mental math games in the car. Look for patterns in the number patterns in the license plate in front of you, or make predictions. Again, you fill up for gas. When are we going to have to stop for gas again? What's our gas mileage going to be like? When you see a road sign with a number on it, just brainstorm all the different ways that you could make that number. So finding fun ways to just incorporate talking about numbers in day-to-day life. And if you can ease into that a little bit, then maybe that will help reduce some math anxiety. And again, the focus being on what are all the different types of strategies and creative things that we can use. We'll talk here also about there are some curricular supports available for you that you might be interested in. So these will be in the slideshow that we've shared in the chat. Maybe we can pop that in there again in case anybody missed it. So if you have a child that you feel needs more support than what they're getting at school, TVO has an online platform called Mathify where you can access one-to-one tutoring at any time. You just log in, I believe, and it connects you with a tutor. if you feel like your child needs more practice than what you're getting at school, they may be using, this goes up to grade 10. They may be using Knowledge Hook in their classroom, but it's also an online platform. And we do have it, if they're not using it in their classroom, we have it accessible through the WRDSB web page. And there's a link here to that. There's a section at the bottom where it says solve. It's a big yellow star. And if you go into that solve tab, you can access by any topic, and that's specific to the Ontario curriculum. If you have a child that you're looking for more extension for, if you feel like they need more of a challenge, on the CEMC, that's the Center for Education in Mathematics and Computing at the University of Waterloo. They have courseware materials on there, videos and practice problems. They have past math contests posted, and then they also have a problem of the week or month that you can access from their website or subscribe to in your inbox. And then you can also access the curriculum directly online. We've put a link here to a guide for parents for grade 9 math that might give you some additional information, and you can always access the whole curriculum, or of course speak to your child's teacher if you want more information about specific curriculum materials. So just to summarize some takeaways for what we've talked about, everyone is a math person. Try to make that message come clear. Praise effort instead of natural ability. Take advantage of opportunities to notice and talk about math around you. Encourage the students to recall and reflect on their learning for the day, even if that's not specifically doing more problems. Understand that math class might feel different for your child than it may have for you in the past. Encourage your child to ask questions about everything, and also of their teacher if they have questions about their math learning. And of course, you can always connect with your child's teacher for more information about what they're doing in class.